y'all think too small, I got big dreams. You just starting, I'm way ahead at the end scenes. Started reading and dodging all of the quick schemes. Money like your Spotify, boy, I got 10 streams. Be real big, I gotta make it just for my kids and for their kids, just kids. That's well.
I'm Daniel.
And I'm Sara.
And this is Acquisitive, episode number 7 with Ross McDaniel. Marketer extraordinaire, owner, founder of Fencepost, a digital marketing agency that specializes in building up communities through serving home service businesses and helping them expand their marketing footprint on the web. So Ross, I'd love to learn a little bit more about you. Tell me, how did you get started with Fencepost? We met years and years ago, but I'd love to kind of go back to the beginning.
Yeah, Daniel, I think when you and I met, it was still a side hustle burgeoning into something else, and you're helping me make sense of the financial world.
I did not realize that. I mean, you definitely put yourself out there as, and not put yourself out there. That's not the right way to put it. No, you definitely came off as an experienced entrepreneur when we first met. So you were doing a great job with the side hustle.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of the origin story. I'm pretty risk averse, and so it probably stayed a side hustle for far too long. And many folks might have said, hey, this is not a side hustle if you're working 30 plus hours a week in it and making a full-time salary and have a small team. But I think that's part of the origin story. Is I've just been I've been agency side for a better part of 15 years, and in jumping ship from the traditional agency world into this, my own agency world, there's a lot of ties there to what was and then what is now. And I think for me, the reason that I left the more traditional agency world, when I say traditional agency world, I mean the agency that's not niched. It's just serving, anybody that comes through the doors, anybody that on up to a Fortune 500 or 1,000 company, on down to the local mom and pop, and moving away from that into a more focused and specialized area. The reason that I did that was because we saw that, man, we are really seeing the apex of value in the invoices we're sending out to the value that our customers were saying, hey, this is amazing, was right there. And that value really was, man, we're seeing the business that we have grown either for 1, 2, or 3 generations. We're locally serving people around. We're seeing that become something that's more than what we ever imagined it could be. And so that's really why Fencepost exists, is not necessarily to serve the masses, but to serve the folks that exist in our small town communities, because that's where we see change, is in our small town communities.
That's awesome. So I know you're in Augusta, Georgia. Do you specifically focus on serving clients in Augusta, or do you mean like small markets kind of anywhere, or, a certain region?
Yeah, we what we're talking about there is mid-cap markets. We're looking at 250,000 to 1 million people. Those are the companies that serve DMAs of that size is who we're looking to go after. And fortunately, we've been blessed to serve people as far west as Irvine, California, and Orange County area, and then as far north as I've got somebody in New York right now, and then a couple people in Denver. And then obviously here in the hometown. But it's interesting when we're looking at that size demo area or local footprint service area, a lot of the things are very similar. Yes, you get very different, like a roofer out in Colorado is going to look very different from the roofer down in Boca Raton, Florida, in terms of like types of storm damage they see. But
I thought you were going to say in terms of skin damage because of the high
skin damage
out
too.
Here.
Skin damage too. Maybe like
Visibly.
windburn as opposed to the sunburn. Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, but like our playbooks are similar, and if we're trying to see our mission play out, well, ultimately it doesn't matter which local community we're impacting, as long as it's a local community we're impacting.
That's awesome. I mean, and most of the people that we talk to, at least on my side, most people that I talk to that are looking to buy home service businesses, so roofing, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, anything of the sort, they tend to be looking in those markets, where that business has close ties to the community, making a community impact, could be a major employer in the area. So definitely important work.
I had a call yesterday with somebody who said, and this is how it's always presented. Here's the blah, blah, blah of the business I'm thinking of buying. Here's how much it's listed for. Here's what they do. Here's the market. And they don't even spend any money on marketing. And that's always viewed as such a bonus because then you can acquire it and spend a little money on marketing and really blow it through the roof is the idea. So I don't know. I would love your take on that, Ross, as far as seeing what you see. If you were buying a company, what would you want to see by way, say you were looking at it, Augusta HVAC, like, do you want to see them doing nothing? Is there anything they could be doing that you would say, that's so bad, I don't want to buy this company, marketing wise?
That's right. Yeah, that's a really good question. Well, I mean, you guys know better than anybody. Over the last couple of years, we've seen just an outrageous surge in people buying what we coined the term as boring businesses. And a lot of times those people are then coming to a place like mine, like Fencepost, and saying, all right, let's scale this thing. And when that happens, or I guess like backing up a few steps, when people are evaluating, I mean, you want some sort of meat left on the bone. And I think a company like mine is going to serve a brand best that has, at least a truck on the road that's not the owner, right?
Okay.
And one admin person, and then some level of like brand equity on Google in some capacity. But that can happen without any marketing effort. That can just happen by sheer, like we've existed, and we've existed in the market well, we've served well, but we haven't been proactive or aggressive in any of these other initiatives. And so I think, like it's pretty appetizing to somebody who's acquiring a company if they have that baseline metric of success, a truck that's not the owner, an admin crew, maybe even a salesperson. Like, okay, well it's sustainable, it's predictable. We've proven it's predictable and it's profitable. Now, can we scale it? And so then we come in like gasoline on a fire. The fire's already burning. The gasoline just helps it explode. And that's when we're looking at like, okay, can we effectively take it from X revenue to Y revenue? What are the 5 different like metric points that a company like mine could affect? Search visibility, traffic to the website, Google business call volume, so on and so forth.
That's awesome. So when you mentioned the Google presence, like something on social, on search, would you consider bad reviews to be a reason not to buy a company? If maybe they have no website, they have or little like an old website, they have a little bit here and there, but no advertising, nothing heavy. But you go on Google and you find that it's 2 or 3 stars. Is that reputation something that can be overcome? Is it worth buying it? Should they offer less, or should they run for the hills?
Whenever we see somebody with a broadly negative average, Google review score, typically that's also associated with not that many reviews, and it's because the business owner hasn't done a great job in like pursuing new reviews. They probably haven't done a great job in a number of areas of their business, but specifically they haven't done a great job there. And so that to me is not a like red flag. This is a hole too big to patch. That's not an indicator of that. To me, that's actually one of those areas of meat on the bone that can come in and we can immediately increase it for 2 reasons. One, you don't have a lot of reviews. All you have to do is go ask your customer base that you have served well to leave you a review, and you'll see 13 to 25% review response rates. Boom. We can overcome, a few negative reviews ASAP. And once you get up to 50, 100, 500, boom, you're good. We can overcome that. The other thing is you actually get to like benchmark progress for your prospective customer base as the business owner. Like, okay, we just acquired this thing. We started off here, we ended here, review rating wise. But for your customer base as the business owner, they get to see, oh, wow, this is how the business owner has responded to these reviews. This is where they were. I remember when I looked at them last year when I needed my HVAC service and nobody was recommending them. Now they've got like a 4.7. What in the world? Let me check them out. Negative reviews are an opportunity is the short of that.
Interesting. So that could be the decision maker between announcing under new ownership or new management versus, maybe coming in silently and taking over. If there's really good reviews, you probably don't want people to know things could change. If it's bad reviews, then that could be a good opportunity to say, hey, new owners, we're doing things different. Here's an opportunity.
People love stories, and like regardless of what format the story is told, seeing review change is a compelling story too.
It's true. If as a consumer, if I clicked on that page and saw a reply to an old complaint saying, we just took over this business, we're excited to prove that we can do it better or whatever, I'd be like, interesting. It's a whole new shot. So that's something you might look at. What kind of do these folks, what kind of ad spend, if you're looking at a target company to acquire in your market, what kind of ad spend do you think people should be expecting?
So when we talk about ad spend, we're saying any amount of dollars that you're going to spend on what we call an ad platform. An example of an ad platform would be Google ads, Google guaranteed, Facebook ads, newer platform is TikTok ads, things like that. Yelp ads is big out in California. Those are all what we call ad platforms. You use them as a consumer differently. Marketers and business owners use them, we pay to play. So when we're talking about ad spend, it should be considered as part of your global marketing budget. I also own a coffee shop. This is one of the hats we got some cool merch at Trellis, and we have been forced to look at our budgets for one, but then our marketing budgets very differently than I've ever been accustomed to on the agency side. But one of the things that I struggle with, both on the agency side and the small business ownership side, is just saying a blanket, hey, use this percentage of your overall revenue to apply to marketing. I think that's great for benchmarking in future years. I think for year one, especially acquiring a brand new business, if you've never been in that industry before, you should just be benchmarking. We should take a very small amount of money and we should be applying that to specific tests. When I say a specific test, I mean, hey, we're going to see if this channel works for us. Let's go spend $4,000 over the course of 90 days on Google ads and see if we generate a positive return. And generally a positive return can be, like benchmarked at 3x. We want 3x return on our dollar over the course of 90 days to see, okay, there's something here that we can go after. And that's just an example of Google ads. But I think really what it boils down to is we have to have some sort of earmark budget to apply there, but don't look at it over the scope of a year. Look at it over a scope of a short time to channel test.
I kind of want to roll back on that before we move off that point, because that's really good to know. So coming from the financial side of things, so much of my mind kind of goes to the forecast. What is the cash flow forecast pre-close? What is the cash flow forecast going to be post-close? Thinking about debt coverage and new owner's salary and leveling everyone else's salaries. And if you're buying a business with no marketing, low-hanging fruit, great opportunity, but don't forget to budget for that marketing spend. And I'm glad you said that, because I would have assumed that you should set aside like 10 or 15% of your revenue immediately off the rip. But if you have no proven marketing plan, then that would be a waste. So such a great point that you could just budget, maybe $4,000 over a quarter rather than, getting ahead of yourself.
You have to test things before you dump a ton of money in, especially in this day and age of, I don't have to have a decade of experience in roofing to go buy a roofing company right now. But how can I pretend to know?
And that's my question, I think, is, so, like Daniel said, I would have thought it's a kind of annual spend, but I think it's much more reasonable the way you're describing it, how in a, kind of quarter, 3-4 months. But there's some limitation, right? You can't do it for a day and get any valuable information. So where's is 90 days kind of the minimum to get good information to create that benchmark?
That's our benchmark at Fencepost. So obviously we're biased, but I genuinely believe that over the course of 3 months, you should at least be able to rule something out. Typically speaking, it will be enough to validate something as well. You may come to a point where it's like, hey, we got a bunch of new business, but we didn't quite match what we invested here, especially if you're like a cleaning company or something that with much smaller ticket. We didn't match our investment. Well, you still might be able to make the call there of well, there's something here. Should we invest a little bit more, but tweak the strategy a bit on said channel or said platform, and see if we can increase. But yes, short answer is I think 90 days is the way to go.
throughout the process of buying a company, you've got all these checklists, and Daniel said at the beginning that we love lists and checklists, which is true. They're very soothing. And I've been working on some all week, and make the colors nice. They're in Excel. They're sortable. It's really nice. Right? Very, very good, soothing process. And a lot of these business buyers are soothed by the same process, and they're getting into an industry they don't know anything about. And you got all of these rules they need to follow from the bank and all these people to actually buy the company. And then somebody just tosses them the keys and is like, good luck. So I kind of like this as this should go on your post-closing checklist is, maybe year one, you're not blowing it out of the water with marketing. Your achievable plan for year one is stabilize and create a benchmark so that you can, know exactly what to budget for year two and where the smartest place to put that money is. Is there anything else that I'm missing there for a list post-closing?
I don't, per location matters a lot. So if you've got multiple markets, you're buying a business with multiple markets. I mean, I would feel confident and comfortable enough even saying, hey, $3,000 in ad spend per channel per location is enough to validate whether or not that channel is going to be effective for your business over 90 days. I think if you have that benchmark in place on your checklist, you're going to be in great shape.
So $3,000 per channel per location, like just to test your channels to figure out where you're going to acquire clients. You need to call your clients and ask for reviews from the people who are happy. What else do we need to do? Do we need to update the website? Do we need to make sure there's like a Google My Business page?
This is a margin opportunity, a low-hanging fruit opportunity, but also maybe a prerequisite prior to buying is like the prior business owner should have claimed their Google business listing. This is the most cheap, free, easy marketing thing you can do. Digital marketing.
Explain what that is for people who've never owned a business and gotten the postcard in the mail.
Yeah, if you've ever searched for your favorite restaurant downtown or whatever else, when you search for that, if you're on a desktop, you see the search results, you see some ads, whatever else, but then on the right hand side you'll see like a picture of the restaurant and best burgers, whatever, and some reviews, things like that. Well, that little thing over there is your Google business listing. On the phone, it might come up even sooner than that. That is a free listing, and it can be search engine optimized. You can put a lot of effort into getting that higher in search results for not even your brand name. And so when we say, hey, before you even engage an agency or a consultant or whatever else, just go claim that. And there's whole SOPs, processes for how to do that. Very simple, but it's an easy, free, cheap marketing thing to do immediately that will have dramatic effects on your business as a local footprint business owner.
I haven't claimed my Google business.
Daniel.
Is it because it's your house and you just got your office?
Oh, thank you.
Don't.
I need an excuse. Thank you.
That's
You're
right.
welcome. I'm
bailed
glad
him
to
out.
support
Come on,
you
we gotta
in
let him
this
sit.
way.
Yeah, luckily, this won't be on YouTube forever, so I can now get away with this.
I claimed mine in the Oxford, and there's a million businesses there. But I don't know if do you know if they still send you a postcard in the mail that you have to put the code to prove that you
I
received
think
mail
that's one
there?
of the verification options. There's a number of them now. Some of them are a pain. That one's not as much of a pain.
I assume that's where, Uber and Google Maps and everything pull from, so that when you type in the name of a physical location, it takes you to it instead of you having to, type in 1616 17th Street or whatever.
That's exactly right. And what we found, just anecdotally, one of the reasons we started Trellis Coffee Bar was to actually execute the Fencepost formula. One of many reasons, but a small reason is, hey, we get to see the local growth formula play out in real life. And one of the things that we found is that people are using Google Business and Apple Maps and Yelp and whatever other listings out there, all work similarly to Google Business. But they're using that to find out not only reviews and things like that, but hours of operation. They're not using it for directions or anything like that. They're just are we open? What are we serving today? Logistical things like that beyond just directions and how to get there. And we've had to really stay on top of it.
I have not recognized that I totally do that. I'm like, ooh, menu,
Yeah, that's exactly right.
really good point. I would love to hear more about Trellis Coffee Bar and your process of buying and running that. That's really
I was about to
exciting
ask too. So you said you started it? Did you start it or did you buy it?
We started it, yeah. And Daniel, I know
Okay.
I've told you a little bit about it, but yeah, Trellis was a passion project wrought out of naivety and a passion for our community. Like there's 4 partners and our wives. All of us love Augusta specifically and deeply, and we all live within 200 yards of the shop, which is really cool.
Oh, that's so cool.
And yeah, and we live in an area that has not gotten as much love from the community over the last 50, 60, 70 years, and we're trying to bring some of that love back. I think in launching any business, but specifically a business that is tangential or totally irrelevant to any past business experience you have as an individual, there's a lot of rocks that you didn't realize need to be turned over that you end up turning over. And it's been a really cool learning process for us. Since opening, even in a short time, we've had opportunities to go explore location number 2, go, acquire this or acquire that. And so those are some conversations we're still wrestling with and trying to figure out what that actually looks like.
I want to hear about how long
yeah.
have you run it? How long have you owned it?
We're in month 5. We're in month 5 right now.
What a difference. We talked last week or the week before, a couple weeks ago, to somebody who's been running a gym for 5 months, and he has, it's been rough, but you're at the 5-month mark and you seem into it and not even that over-caffeinated.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty over-caffeinated. Well, I'm not even going to tell you how much we've done today, but I think part of that comes from having multiple partners. There have been some real difficulties, a lot of icebergs in the waters of multi-partner business relationships. However, there's some real benefit, and the burnout is shared. The burnout is pretty evenly split across the board. I don't envy the single person or mom and pop businesses that try to start something new overnight. It's big.
I'm changing my opinion on partnerships. I used to be very anti-partnership.
Really?
But then I wanted to start this podcast, and I was dragging my feet, and Sarah sent me a message, and she was like, "Hey, you said you were going to start a podcast, and you didn't. So let's start the podcast." And here we are.
Sarah, the bastion of accountability. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And now we're looking at I'm looking at bringing in someone, possibly merging on the accounting firm side, which will really expand our capabilities and our ability to serve our clients, which would be major. So I've definitely changed my position on partners.
I think I might be changing my position on that too. And that was the theme of a coffee I had yesterday with somebody where he's a non-operator of 5 or 6 businesses, and he can only do that.
Wait, you have partners already. If you're changing, are you ditching your partners? Like, what are you saying?
I have one partner in my law firm, and I have one partner in my co-host. So I guess I'm just going to change the advice I give clients, which is usually like, run. It's hard to validate.
Oh, so you're coming around too. So we're on the same page.
We are. Maybe we've changed those for each other. But Ross,
it would have been awkward if it wasn't. If you were no,
awkward.
I actually hate this, by the way.
And I'm in the middle of it, and I just need to you just see me mute my camera and my mic.
Ross, I would love to hear about some of the icebergs.
Everybody, enters into something like this that we all know it's not going to make a ton of money, right? For sure not in the beginning, maybe not for a long, long time, maybe not ever. So we enter in on something beyond just money. We enter in a shared set of values. I think what one of the icebergs is not realizing that the expressions of those values actually look very different in a day-to-day operational setting for a coffee shop, which is already a very communal place. And so for us, I think that was one of the things is I want the expression of this specific value to look like this. And that's a terrible idea because of this, this, and this. And I want it to look like that, So a lot of those conversations, I think in matters of equity and things like that, who's bringing what to the table, how does that, value play out long-term? whether it's sweat or money or whatever, and you have this, but I put in this, and so on and so forth. I think that's another one that even amongst friends, there's always those lingering opportunities for resentment and bitterness and whatever else. And so we've had to work very hard, and not always perfectly, as a partnership to really make sure that we fall back on our aligned set of values and make sure that we're not keeping anything. We want to call those icebergs out well in advance and see them as they hit the ship, right? And just call them for what they are.
Is there anything you would tell yourself if you could go back in time 5 months? Like, hey, Ross, this is budget more, or relax a little?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think budgeting more. So our project ended up creeping beyond the original budget scope by, goodness, maybe 30 or 40%. That's a lot. It was a whole lot, especially for the scope of operation that we're running. And that was the other thing that expanded too, is maybe the scope of operation that we had originally thought was a cafe the size of this room with a couple of trendy baristas slinging some good coffee. And it's not that. It's wild, and it's fun, and it's big, and it's exciting to be part of that big thing, but it expanded scope. So what I would tell myself is plan for more and budget more. And if you can't do that, then don't do it.
That's interesting. So I had a similar situated deal with 4 couples who were trying to buy a local company. And ultimately it didn't go through because exactly what you're describing, there was going to be, they thought I could assume an EIDL loan at a really low interest rate, and you can't ever assume those. So then it was going to be like, $90K more. And just the discussions of trying to talk to that many interest holders about where and who was going to cough that up made it seem to me that they should not open a business together, especially one that's not, intended to be inordinately profitable, because it's going to happen a lot. But how did that go when you had over budget? How were those discussions? Who stepped in?
Yeah, that one's hard too, because I don't know if some of these questions are or the answers to these questions were actually right answers. It's just how we did them, right? And so, when scope creep came, we kind of felt like we were too far in. You can't, without, and maybe that's something else that we actually would have done differently, is had a different guide or a different type of guide along the way, perhaps involved one of you much sooner in the process, or at all in the process.
It's never too late.
Would have been great. Yeah, it's never too late.
I still have that proposal out, Ross.
That's right. It's never too late. You got to honor that before prices go up.
This has been amazing. I know we only have a couple minutes left before you have a hard stop, so we can start to wrap. Thank you so much. We're going to have you come back, because this has been phenomenal, especially for someone who's buying a business that has no marketing in place or very little marketing in place. Thank you so much for sharing the origin stories and the parts of your journey with Trellis, the coffee bar. It's such a good story for so many people to learn from. Big key takeaways. Sounds like if you buy a business, you need to claim your Google listing for your business. You need to reach out and collect reviews, and you need to spend $3,000 per channel per market to test out what kind of marketing will work over the course of 3 months. Ross, thanks again. For all the listeners, anybody listening that needs digital marketing help, what can you do? How would you like to help them, and where can they find you?
Yeah, come on over to fencepost.co. Think about your fence and the fence post on it. .co, not .com, and ask for a free assessment. Got a nice little button there, and we'd be glad to just take a look at what you got going on.
All right, and the contact information will be in the show notes or in the video description on YouTube, wherever you're watching this. So thank you so much. This has been episode 7 of Acquisitive with Ross McDaniel, owner of Fencepost, fencepost.co. Thank you, Ross. If you got some value from this, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Big, I gotta make it just for my kids and for their kids' kids. That's wealth years and years. Promise my brother soon as he out to finish this bid, we finna do it bigger than anybody.